Before 1930, there was no World Cup. Football was a star at the Olympic Games, but only for amateurs. The professionals had no global stage to prove their worth. FIFA, led by its visionary president Jules Rimet, saw this gap. He dreamt of a tournament bringing together the best footballing nations to crown a true world champion. It was about prestige, pride, and proving who was best. But FIFA and the International Olympic Committee clashed over professional players. So in 1928, FIFA made a bold decision. They would go it alone and create their own world championship. This was a huge gamble. International travel meant long, expensive sea voyages. But Rimet believed in football's power to unite people, envisioning the Jules Rimet Trophy as the ultimate prize. The dream was simple: one tournament, one world champion. This was football's declaration of independence, and the pressure was immense for the first tournament to succeed, with the world watching. So, they had a tournament, but they needed a host. Several European nations put their hands up. Italy was keen. Sweden was keen. The Netherlands was keen. Spain was keen. But the bid that stood out came from all the way across the Atlantic, from Uruguay. At first glance, it might have seemed an odd choice. A small South American country hosting the world's biggest new sporting event? When you look closer, it makes perfect sense. Uruguay was, at that time, the undisputed king of world football. They had won the Olympic gold medals in 1924. They had won the Olympic gold medals in 1928. Those wins were seen as the unofficial world championships back then. They were a footballing powerhouse. There was another huge reason for choosing Uruguay. The year 1930 marked the 100th anniversary of the country's first constitution and its independence. They wanted to celebrate this centenary in style. Hosting the first ever World Cup would be the perfect centerpiece for their national festivities. To sweeten the deal, Uruguay made an incredibly generous offer. They promised to pay for the travel for all the participating teams. They promised to pay for the accommodation for all the participating teams. They committed to building a brand new, magnificent stadium specifically for the tournament. In an era of economic uncertainty, this was an offer too good to refuse for FIFA. The financial commitment was staggering. Building the Estadio Centenario in Montevideo was a massive undertaking. The name itself, Centenario, was a nod to their centenary celebration. This stadium was going to be a cathedral of football, ready to welcome the world. By putting their money where their mouth was, Uruguay showed just how serious they were. They were staging a national celebration and inviting the entire footballing world to the party. So, in 1929, at the FIFA Congress in Barcelona, the decision was made. Uruguay was officially named the host of the inaugural 1930 FIFA World Cup. It was a victory for South American football, and a recognition of Uruguay's dominance on the pitch. The first World Cup would have a distinctly Latin flavor. Europeans now faced a long and arduous journey by sea if they wanted to take part. This decision would have a massive impact on which teams actually turned up. The journey itself would become part of the story. With Uruguay confirmed as host, the next big challenge was getting teams to actually go. The journey was the main problem, especially for the European nations. A 2-week boat trip across the Atlantic Ocean. Players left their clubs for up to 2 months. Many clubs weren't happy about releasing their stars. 2 months before kickoff, no European nation had confirmed. It became a crisis for Jules Rimet. Rimet personally intervened to persuade teams. In the end, only 4 European nations signed up. France, Belgium, Romania, Yugoslavia. Romania's king, Carol II, personally selected the squad. He negotiated with employers so players could keep their jobs. The French team, the Belgian team, the Romanian team, SS Conte Verde. They picked up Brazil en route. Yugoslavia sailed on a separate mail steamship. It was an adventure before a ball was even kicked. Only 13 teams competed in total. No qualification rounds. Every applicant was accepted. Most teams were from the Americas: Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, United States, Mexico. 7 South American teams, 2 North American teams, 4 European teams, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. They had withdrawn from FIFA, claiming superiority. Fewer teams was a disappointment, but the show went on. The travelers became World Cup pioneers. European squads trained on the ship's deck. Imagine keepy-ups on a rolling deck, not like modern luxury travel. These players were trailblazers, journeying for the love of the game. So, here's how it all played out. The 13 teams were drawn into 4 groups. 3 of those groups had 3 teams each. One group had 4. The format was simple and ruthless. Only the winner of each group advanced to the semifinals. There were no second chances. The tournament began on July 13, 1930, with 2 matches simultaneously. France beat Mexico 4-1. The United States beat Belgium 3-0. In that France-Mexico game, Lucien Laurent scored the first ever World Cup goal. What a moment for him. The group stage showed South American dominance. Argentina, led by Guillermo Stabile, stormed through their group. Uruguay, hosts and favorites, also won comfortably with roaring home support. The other 2 group winners were surprising. Yugoslavia topped their group, beating Brazil. The US team was a mix of professionals and semi-professionals. Many players had roots in English and Scottish football. The US also made the last 4. The stage was set for 2 massive semi-finals. The semis were brutally one-sided. Argentina demolished the US 6-1. The next day, Uruguay beat Yugoslavia 6-1. That win came in front of a euphoric crowd at the brand new Estadio Centenario. The dream final. Uruguay versus Argentina, a repeat of the 1928 Olympic final. The final, on July 30, 1930, was one of football's most intense matches. There was even a dispute over which ball to use. Argentina wanted their ball, Uruguay wanted theirs. Referee John Langinis compromised, Argentine ball first half, Uruguayan ball second. The atmosphere was electric. Estadio Centenario packed with nearly 70,000 fans. This was more than a game, it was national pride. The final itself really was a classic. Uruguay scored first through Pablo Dorado, home crowd absolutely wild, but Argentina, well, they fought back brilliantly. Carlos Pucel scored before halftime. Guillermo Stabile scored to make it 2-1. Stabile's goal made him the tournament's top scorer with 8 goals. At the break, it honestly looked like the Argentinians might just spoil the party. The hosts were trailing in their own stadium. The tension in Montevideo must have been unbelievable. The centenary celebrations were on the line. But then, in the second half, Uruguay came roaring back. They were just a different team. Pedro Chea scored the equalizer just before the hour mark. You could feel the momentum shift completely. Then, with just over 20 minutes to go, Santos Iriarte unleashed a powerful shot to put Uruguay 3-2 ahead. The stadium erupted, and, as the final whistle approached, Hector Castro, a player who had lost his lower right arm in a childhood accident, sealed the victory with a header in the final minute. Uruguay had won 4-2. They were the first ever world champions of football. The victory sparked wild celebrations all across Uruguay. The following day was even declared a national holiday. Captain Jose Nasazi was presented with the World Cup trophy. The players became national heroes overnight. The first World Cup had been a resounding success. It had drama, heroes, villains, and a real fairy tale ending for the host nation. It proved that a global football tournament could capture the world's imagination. The legacy of the 1930 World Cup is just immense. It established the tournament as the absolute pinnacle of international football, a tradition that continues to this day, stronger than ever. It showcased the passion and skill of South American football to the world, and created a fierce continental rivalry that still burns brightly. But most importantly, it fulfilled Jules Rimet's dream. It brought nations together, created unforgettable moments, and crowned an undisputed world champion. Every goal, every save, and every cheer at every World Cup since owes a debt to those pioneers in Uruguay in 1930. They didn't just play a tournament, they started a global phenomenon,